I don't usually talk about this part of my travels. It isn't something I could write in a journal or explain to someone over coffee. It feels like a memory and a dream folded into one. And yet, I remember every detail as if it happened only last night. It began in a quiet village, tucked into the crook of a misty valley. I had arrived there in the middle of autumn, with my pack slung over one shoulder and a slight ache in my feet. Gravel shifted beneath my boots as I followed a winding lane towards an old guest house that had once been a mill. The place creaked. The floorboards complained beneath every step, and the old doors groaned like tired storytellers. But I didn't mind. I liked the hush of it all, and the way sound moved through silence like it had space to breathe. My room was on the top floor, beneath the slant of the roof. There was a narrow bed, a writing desk, and a tall oval mirror with a tarnished brass frame standing quietly in the corner. The mirror looked old, but the glass was unusually clear. That first night, I couldn't sleep. The wind nudged gently at the roof, and I could hear the soft rush of a stream beyond the window, slipping over rocks in a constant hush. I lay awake, watching the mirror. It showed the room behind me in perfect stillness. But then something shifted. The curtain in the reflection moved a moment too late. My boots were no longer where I had left them, and the version of me in the mirror turned her head slightly slower than I did. I got out of bed and walked across the room. The floor let out another sigh beneath my feet. I stood in front of the mirror. My reflection gazed back at me, calm and steady. Then I saw it. A wooden door just behind me in the reflection. It had a curved handle shaped like a branch, and a warm light glowed from the gap beneath it. I turned around, but the room was empty. No door, only shadows and silence. I looked back into the mirror, and the door was still there. It seemed to be waiting. I didn't reach out right away, but I watched for a long time, letting my breathing slow. The river outside kept flowing. Then I placed my hand against the glass. It was cold, like still water before sunrise, but it gave way. My hand passed through the surface like it was made of smoke. There was no shattering of glass, no sudden pull, just a cool sensation, like walking into a shaded room after a day in the sun. I stepped forward, slowly, and the hush of the guest house faded behind me. At first I could see nothing. There was a fog that seemed to breathe around me, light and colour shifting faintly within it. Then shapes began to form arches made of stone, trees with narrow silver leaves, a path that wound forward through a still and listening wood. The gravel was finer here, almost like dust, but it crunched gently beneath my boots with every step I took. I followed the path without hesitation, feeling no fear, only that peculiar calm that comes when something impossible starts to feel natural. The forest opened slowly, revealing pools of quiet water and leaning boughs that stretched across the trail like sheltering arms. Above, the sky was deep blue, and stars glimmered faintly, even though it didn't feel like night. The air held the scent of wet leaves and distant rain. As I walked, I passed through archways carved with markings I didn't recognise. They were worn and moss-covered, but I had the sense that they were not forgotten. This place felt kept, not abandoned, preserved in its stillness, as if waiting for something or someone to return. I came to a small bridge, built from smooth stones that curved over a stream. The water below moved slowly, clear as glass, with a silverfish gleam to it. On the far side of the bridge stood a structure. It wasn't quite a house, more like a pavilion, open and quiet, with thin wooden beams and fabric that moved gently in the breeze. I stepped across the bridge and into the space beneath the roof. The floor was made of dark wood, and it creaked softly as I moved forward. Inside there was nothing but another mirror. Taller than the last, its frame made of twisted copper, branches that caught the light in gentle curves. This mirror didn't reflect the pavilion or the stream behind me. Instead, it showed a library, with high shelves and golden lamps that flickered gently in the corners of the room. I stood in front of it, watching. Dust moved like breath in the mirror's still air, and the books on the shelves looked old, but well kept. It wasn't the kind of place you would stumble into by accident. It was the sort of room you reached only if you needed something, even if you didn't know what that was yet. After a moment, I stepped forward once more. Crossing the threshold into the library felt different. The air here was warmer, touched by a quiet depth, like the inside of a candlelit chapel or the heart of a story told in whispers. The scent of aged paper and polished wood drifted up around me, familiar and comforting. My boots moved across a tiled floor now, smooth and worn, the steps softened by woven rugs that ran like rivers between the shelves. The books surrounded me like trees in a strange forest, tall and endless, each one holding a world of its own. Some titles glowed faintly with threads of silver, others had no names at all. There was no one there, and yet the room did not feel empty. It felt observed in the quietest way, a presence that wasn't watching, but simply aware. I moved through the aisles, not searching, just following a pull that I couldn't explain. Occasionally, I heard the flutter of a page turning in the distance, though I never saw which book moved. Eventually, I came to a low, wooden table. Upon it lay a single book, open, though I hadn't touched it. Its pages were pale and soft, and as I bent to read the words, they shimmered slightly, as if unsure whether they were meant to be seen. There was no title, only a first line. The one who walks through mirrors will never leave unchanged. Beneath it, more words unfurled, like ink rising through water. They told no story I recognized, but they described someone, a traveller, a woman with quiet hands and wandering thoughts, someone who had walked dusty paths and stood in the spaces between. The descriptions became more specific. It spoke of the gravel path through the village, of the door I'd seen in the mirror, of the brass-framed glass and the wind scratching gently at the window pane. I turned away from the table, heart slow, but steady. This was not a place I had found. It was a place that had found me. Behind me, the mirror shimmered again, but this time it showed something new. A mountainside path lined with flickering lanterns. Stone steps led upward into cloud and shadow. The air there looked thinner, colder, but also somehow brighter, as though the higher I climbed, the closer I would come to something I had forgotten. I stood for a long time before stepping forward. The path was steeper than I expected, winding upward through a landscape that seemed both familiar and strange. The stones beneath my boots were smooth from years of quiet footsteps, and the air grew cooler with every step. Above me, lanterns flickered in the soft dusk, casting long shadows that danced across the rocks and trees. I moved slowly, taking in the silence that wrapped around the mountainside like a thick shawl. There was a distant murmur, perhaps a stream far below, mixing with the soft rustling of leaves high in the trees. It felt as though the mountain itself was breathing, patient and eternal. The trail curved around a bend where a narrow wooden bridge stretched across a chasm shrouded in mist. The planks creaked lightly beneath my weight, steady but alive, as if the bridge was a living thing, holding me up between the worlds. On the other side, the path led into a quiet grove where the air smelled of pine and damp earth. Tiny lights floated among the branches, maybe fireflies or something softer, more ethereal. I paused and watched them flicker gently, their glow steady and slow, like the heartbeat of the forest itself. The sky above was a deep indigo, dotted with stars that seemed to pulse softly, as if breathing alongside me. I felt a curious calm settle in my chest, the kind that comes when the world quiets, just enough for secrets to slip in unnoticed. Further ahead, the path ended at a stone doorway, carved with symbols I didn't understand. It was set into the side of the mountain, half hidden beneath twisting vines and moss. I reached out and pressed my hand to the cool stone, feeling its steady pulse beneath my fingers. The door opened silently, inviting me inside. Stepping through the doorway, I found myself in a narrow tunnel carved from stone. The air was cooler here, carrying a faint scent of earth and something ancient, like memories held tight beneath layers of time. My footsteps echoed softly as I walked, each step a quiet whisper against the rock. The tunnel opened into a cavernous chamber, lit by soft, glowing crystals embedded in the walls. Their pale light shimmered gently, casting dancing shadows that flickered like slow flames across the ceiling. The silence here was deep, a calm so complete it seemed to press gently against my skin. In the centre of the chamber stood an ornate mirror, its frame carved from silver and etched with delicate patterns that seemed to pulse faintly in the crystal light. Unlike the others, this mirror did not reflect my image. Instead, it showed a swirling mist, shifting and curling like smoke caught in a breeze. I stepped closer, mesmerized by the mist's slow dance. It felt alive, as if it held stories just out of reach, waiting to be told. As I reached out to touch the glass, a gentle warmth spread through my fingertips, and the mist inside seemed to part, revealing a pathway, an invitation deeper into the unknown. Without hesitation, I passed through the mirror's surface once more. On the other side, I found myself in a quiet garden, bathed in twilight. The air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and soft earth. Fireflies floated lazily among the flowers, their lights blinking like distant stars. The garden was peaceful, yet it held a strange stillness, as if time itself had slowed. I walked along a stone path lined with ancient trees, their branches heavy with soft, glowing fruit. Each step felt like a gentle rhythm, a lullaby sung by the earth beneath my feet. At the heart of the garden, a quiet pond mirrored the sky, its surface smooth and dark. I knelt beside it and gazed into the water, seeing not my reflection, but 1,000 tiny lights, flickering like distant galaxies. It was a reminder that even in stillness, there is a vastness beyond what the eye can see. The air around the pond was cool and still, the quiet only broken by the faint ripple of water stirred by a soft breeze. I stayed there a long moment, feeling the steady pulse of the garden's calm reach into me, filling the spaces where the world's noise had once settled. As I rose, the path before me shifted subtly, as if the garden itself was guiding my steps. The trees leaned closer, their glowing fruit casting warm pools of light that danced across the leaves. The scent of jasmine deepened, rich and soothing, wrapping around me like a familiar shawl. I followed the path until it came to a small stone archway, draped in vines heavy with blossoms. Beyond it, the sky had softened to a pale lavender, with clouds drifting slowly like whispers. Stepping through the arch, I felt a gentle hush fall over everything, as if stepping into a secret held only for those who dared to listen. Ahead, I spotted another mirror, smaller this time, framed in delicate silver filigree. Its surface shimmered like water, reflecting not the garden, but a vast desert under a sky streaked with fading pink and orange. I could almost feel the heat of the sun and the dry scent of sand carried on a far-off breeze. I hesitated for only a moment before touching the mirror's surface again. The coolness under my fingertips was grounding, a steady anchor. Slowly, I stepped through and felt the world shift around me once more. The moment I passed through the shimmering surface, the world softened and shifted again. When my feet touched solid ground, I was no longer beneath the vast desert sky. Instead, I found myself standing inside a small cottage filled with the warm glow of a crackling fireplace. The walls were lined with bookshelves heavy with worn volumes, and the scent of fresh bread mingled with herbs from a pot simmering on the stove. A woolen rug lay beneath a low wooden table, and comfortable chairs were arranged as if for a quiet gathering. Despite the warmth and homeliness, I felt strangely apart from the room. I could move through the space, touch the edges of furniture, but the people living here could not see me. They went about their day, talking softly to one another, their voices warm but unaware of my presence. An elderly woman hummed as she stirred a pot, and a younger man trimmed herbs at the table. A small dog lay curled by the fire, its breathing slow and even. I watched quietly, feeling like a shadow or a whisper caught in the folds of a story that was not mine to tell. I wandered slowly, tracing my fingers along the spines of books, feeling the weight of years in the worn wood beneath my touch. I wished to reach out, to speak, but no sound came from me. It was as though I was both here and elsewhere, a silent witness to a life I could observe but never join. The room felt safe, a gentle haven where time moved with a slower, kinder rhythm. And yet, beneath the quiet comfort, there was a thread of longing, a reminder that some doors are crossed not to stay, but to understand. As I moved through the room, a subtle shift caught my attention, a faint chill beneath the warmth, like a breath held just beyond hearing. My gaze settled on a small wooden chest tucked beneath a window, its surface carved with delicate patterns that seemed almost alive in the flickering firelight. Though I could see it clearly, something told me that this chest was more than just an ordinary object. There was a quiet energy humming around it, like a secret waiting patiently to be told. I felt drawn toward it, my fingers itching to reach out once more, but the invisible barrier between me and this place held firm. The soft murmur of voices continued around me, the gentle clink of crockery and the rustle of fabric. Yet, in the midst of this peaceful bustle, the chest stood silent and still, a heart beating softly beneath the calm. I waited, breath steady, as if simply being near it would reveal its story. The fire crackled, and shadows danced, weaving light and dark across the floor. Time seemed to stretch, holding its breath, as I listened for the whisper of a secret just beyond reach. The longer I stood there, the more the quiet seemed to fold around me like a soft invitation. My fingers finally brushed the chest's carved surface, tracing the delicate patterns that pulsed faintly under my touch. It felt warm now, as if waking from a long sleep. As I pressed lightly, a small panel shifted, revealing a hidden compartment inside. Within lay a folded piece of parchment, aged and delicate, its edges softened by time. Carefully, I unfolded it, revealing a map, not of any place I knew, but of a labyrinth of paths and mirrors, winding through forests, mountains, and shadowed halls. The map seemed alive, its lines glowing softly in the dim light, and at its centre was a symbol, the same as the one etched on the frame of the first mirror I had seen. It was a sign I had not understood before, but now it felt like a key. I tucked the parchment close, feeling that it held the answer to the journey I had begun, and the promise of discoveries still to come. Holding the map close, I felt the gentle weight of possibility settle in my hands. It was both a guide and a question, an invitation to follow paths I'd never known existed, but also a reminder that the journey was far from over. The cottage around me remained warm and quiet, the soft hum of life carrying on as if I were nothing more than a breeze slipping through the room. I wondered if the people here sensed my presence at all, or if I was destined to be a silent guardian of their stories, a watcher who could move unseen between worlds. For a moment, I let the map rest against my chest, closing my eyes to listen to the crackling fire and the faint murmur of voices. The choice was mine, to remain here in this peaceful refuge or to step forward once again into the unknown paths the map promised. With a steady breath, I folded the parchment carefully and slipped it into my pack. Whatever lay ahead, I knew that this journey, this crossing of mirrors and moments, was part of something much larger than I had ever imagined. I knew it was time to move on. Quietly, I left the warmth of the cottage behind and approached the silver-framed mirror once more. Its surface shimmered like calm water, inviting me to step through again. As my hand touched the glass, I felt the familiar coolness, and the world shifted. I found myself on the deck of a ship, surrounded by endless ocean. The wooden planks beneath my feet creaked softly with the gentle sway of the waves. The sky above was a deep navy, dotted with distant stars that flickered like lanterns on a breeze. Salt air filled my lungs, mingling with the faint scent of old timber and seaweed. The ship was quiet, almost abandoned, yet it held an air of purpose, as though it was waiting to carry me somewhere important, somewhere beyond the horizon of my memories. I wandered the deck slowly, the cool night breeze brushing against my skin. Somewhere below, I thought I heard the soft murmur of voices, like distant echoes of a story still unfolding. After some time, I found a small cabin at the ship's stern. Inside, the warm glow of lantern light spilled softly onto the polished wood. I rested for a moment, feeling the steady rhythm of the ocean beneath me, a gentle lullaby guiding me home. When I stepped back through the mirror in the cabin, the world shifted once more. Back in my own room, I sank into the quiet comfort of familiar surroundings. The soft creak of the floorboards beneath my feet, the gentle whisper of wind brushing against the window pane. They were like old friends welcoming me back from a long journey. Outside, the night stretched wide and calm, the stars twinkling quietly, as if to remind me that the world holds more wonders than I could ever imagine. I reached into my pack and felt the worn map nestled inside. Though folded and delicate, it carried a weight far beyond its size, a map not just of places, but of moments, choices, and hidden doors. It felt as if the worlds I had walked through were now threads woven into the fabric of who I am, quiet but ever present. There is a strange beauty in travelling between worlds, not always with grand gestures or roaring voices, but in the soft spaces between, where mysteries linger just out of reach and dreams brush gently against waking. Those moments teach me that sometimes the deepest journeys happen quietly, within the stillness of our own hearts. I carry with me not just my own curiosity, but the hopes and dreams of all those who have ever gazed into a mirror and wondered what lay beyond their reflection. In the mirror worlds, every journey is both deeply personal and universally shared. Every step forward a contribution to the vast tapestry of possibility that connects all things. This is the gift of the Mirrorwalker, not just to explore, but to weave new threads into the fabric of reality itself, ensuring that the worlds beyond the glass remain open to all who are ready to discover them. And now, as I rest here in the calm night, I feel a gentle knowing that when the time is right, when curiosity stirs once again, the mirror will be waiting, ready to open its door, ready to show me the paths still left to wander, and the secrets still waiting to be found. For now, I close my eyes and breathe deeply, letting the quiet of the night settle around me like a soft cloak, knowing that every journey, no matter how far, begins and ends with a step taken softly into the unknown. Sleep well. Good night.